Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to This is Mariya. Today, we are talking about the karma of Atlantis. I've been called, frankly, to take this topic upon because we are at a juncture. Not only are we migrating from a third dimensional density to a fifth dimensional density, but as a part of this transition, as a part of the ending of the cycle, we have to work through a lot of karma collectively as humanity. And it just happens so that the karma of Atlantis, the continent that sunk a few thousand years ago, many thousands of years ago at this point, that karma is coming front and center for humanity. And so today I figured we're going to talk about that because a lot of the beautiful souls that have shown up for this incarnation carry within themselves the imprint of the karmic lessons they have lived through on Atlantis. And we're collectively ready to let go. Until we're able to let go of those lessons, unfortunately, it's very hard for us to move on because the baggage of Atlantis is hard. It's heavy. There's a lot of heaviness in the air. And it's also, it's been quite persistent. It's been a little bit harder for humanity to shake off than some other baggage. And I feel like it's coming back to haunt us a little bit in certain instances. And, today I figured I'd shed the light on this because the first step to healing is awareness. And so at least if there's one thing we're going to do today is we're going to bring awareness to some of the issues that our Atlantean karma holds for us as a collective. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder for those of you beautiful souls that have not yet gotten a copy of my book. My book is out. It is called 72 Keys to Manifestation, or An Ancient Path of a Modern Day Alchemist. It is available on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. And it is a beautiful book on spirituality and manifesting your best life yet. It is meant to take you on a 72-day journey, one day, one key per day, one chapter per day. And it contains a wealth of knowledge of how the world of energy works, and everything is energy. It may be invisible, but it doesn't make it any less real. And energy is an incredible tool on your path to manifestation, creating the life that you want. And the book has a lot of ancient forgotten knowledge. And, I'm just really excited to be able to talk about this. And thank you for everybody that has sent me, private notes on how much you've been enjoying it, how much it's been helping you. All right. On that note, why don't we talk about Atlantis? I'll be the first one to admit that we live in the multiverse. As such, your recollections of Atlantis may vary from the recollections of other people around you. Because not only do you yourself have multiple offshoots, even if you of the same incarnation that you came into and lived on Atlantis, based on the choices that you made, right? The universe preserved or may preserve multiple choices. So you may be aware of going left, or like at an intersection between going left and going right. You think that you chose just an option to go left, but actually your soul chooses both and you explore both possibilities. Now, not only do you live in in your own personal multiverse, but there are multiple versions of the Atlantis story that have all kind of converged into like one big lump sum collective memory. On top of everything, the continent of Atlantis has stood for quite a length of time, and the karma that it has accumulated is quite vast. It has some of the positive karma that it still holds, and it has a lot of the negative karma. Hence, the only way to move forward for this planet was to sink it. There was no other way. There was so much darkness accumulated on the continent of Atlantis that it was just a matter of time until it had to be cleansed. Of course, the easiest way to cleanse anything is with water in this third dimensional density, and hence the drowning of the continent, so that chunks of the karma of the continent itself, of the land itself, could be cleansed. Now, while the continent's karma, the karma of the earth has been predominantly cleansed, very little of the Atlantean karma remains in the crust of the planet Earth. Enough of that karma still remains in the, shall we say, in the light bodies, in the memories, in the Akashic records of the people and the beings that came to incarnate on Atlantis. So enough of us are carrying this within our blueprint or soul imprint, if you will. And it is time for us to finally let it go, as persistent and as clingy as that karma is. Now, usually when we cross, when we approach the end of the cycle, we are right now, we're at the end of the cycle. We're standing at a threshold as a collective. We have a choice. And in this particular case, we're offered an ability to transcend all of that pain, all of the suffering, all of the density, all of the mistakes, frankly, that we have made collectively during our incarnations on Atlantis. And if we are ready to let go of enough of that baggage, we can rise up into the higher plane. We can move on to bigger and better pastures without carrying in our blueprint all of the things that went wrong and the roles that we had to play in the collapse of one of the greatest civilizations, if we're being totally honest. Now, the reason that Atlantis is coming really, really strong right now is this. Evolution is a spiral, right? It's not a straight line. It's not a circle. Usually, sometimes you have to go through multiple circles to get to the spiral movement up again. But when you're moving up the spiral, there are usually on the different loops of the spiral, if you if you're moving up high enough, you usually come upon the place of the spiral you have been on before in terms of coordinates. It's just you're more elevated. It's almost like you are one level up, one floor up, but in the exactly same room, if that makes sense. So this is exactly what's happening right now. We are moving on the spiral of evolution, and we have approached the coordinates of the time, the date when Atlantis actually sunk. With the time passing, it's kind of like we're a loop over, meaning, quote unquote, we are in the future from that event. But the magnetism of that event is incredible because, if you kind of imagine, essentially on the spiral, there could be a straight line drawn between 2 points, the point that is right now and the point when Atlantis was sunk. And that is that incredible shortcut exists. Essentially, we're smack in the same place, just thousands of years later, if that makes any sense. Now, a lot of the karmic lessons that are coming through right now, it's not just Atlantis that's being closed up, but every 2,000 years, very charged things happen with humanity. Every 2,000 years, something bigger than life happens. And it's not precisely every 2,000 years. There is plus minus 100 years, actually, if we're being totally honest. And the way that the spiral is created is every loop is 2,000 years, if you will. Which is actually really interesting because what happened 2,000 years ago was the crucifixion of Jesus and the life of Jesus, right? So a lot of that karma, by the way, is coming through for humanity as well. But Atlantis was on the same axis. It was, 2,000 years multiplied by X in the past, meaning it exists on the same exact loop that we are in the same exact set of coordinates. Let's not overcomplicate this, right? And right now it is because of this shortcut, right, that we have, because we are on a place in the spiral that is directly above the sinking of Atlantis, if that makes sense, in the happening. We have this beautiful opportunity to transcend some of that karma. Now, what is that karma? And by the way, let me just say something. Does every soul currently incarnated on Earth carry the blueprint, the Atlantic blueprint, carry the karma of Atlantis? No, not really. But 30% of the population of today carry it really, really strongly. And that is a lot, you guys. 30% of the human population. And another 15% carries it to some degree, right? So pretty much half of humanity has something to do with Atlantis. I'm just saying. Now, there is a lot of karma on that continent. And at this point, planet Earth wants to transcend that karma. And the only last missing piece is helping us as people who have gone through incarnations on Atlantis transcend our karma so this loop can finally be closed and we can move on to bigger and better things. I'm going to go over some of the major karmic knots that the continent of Atlantis held, as well as some of the very common threads and denominators that people who who incarnated on the continent, as well as who specifically incarnated on the continent during its last days, hold within their light body. So that's what we're going to focus on, the patterns, the broader templates, if you will. And then towards the end, hopefully we can talk about how can you personally work on transcending that karma, although the answer with that is never simple, to be honest. Some of these karmic knots are very deep set. So the first one is, and the very obvious one, is the fear of water. Very obvious one. The fear of, drowning, the fear of people you love drowning. That fear of water is going to be extremely, extremely prevalent in anyone who has witnessed the fall of Atlantis and the feeling, the sinking of the continent. Now, some souls caused it, other souls witnessed it. There were some souls that chose to stay behind and they had a chance to escape. And then there are some souls that escaped. Whichever one group you belong to, it was still a pretty traumatic experience if you incarnated during the very last days of Atlantis. So you would have this natural fear of water, enough so that it would, you would not want to go into a physical body of water when you can't feel how deep the water goes. You may have a distrust of water as an element. You may also, actually, another thing that comes as a hand in hand, like this fear of losing your belongings or losing your possessions or losing your entire life to water. And it's almost like this sense of desperation when, the house that you love and the life that you want, that you love is actually, no longer there because a natural disaster took it away from you. So there is that underlying fear with Atlantis, but there is more than that, actually. The fear of water, symbolically, is the fear of emotions. It's the fear of feeling. It's the fear of being hurt. It's the fear of pain itself. It's also the fear of being connected to the mother because the water is the mother element. And so everybody who carries within themselves the blueprint of drowning during the last days of Atlantis has a messed up relationship with the mother. And if that does not manifest as a relationship with their physical mother, it usually manifests as a relationship with the female face of God. Enough so that some don't have a relationship with the Divine Mother or don't want to, accept that aspect of her, right? Going back to the connection with water and emotions, it's all of these walls that are often built to prevent ourselves from feeling. So very often, the people who have experienced the drowning of the continent and the last days of Atlantis, they would have their hearts covered by a thick shell, protective shell, because our hearts is what we need to protect if we are worried about emotions. If emotions and water that symbolizes emotions is dangerous, if we perceive water as dangerous, then everything that water stands for, we're going to, by default, by definition, perceive as dangerous as well. There's no other way. The game of associations is subconscious and it's extremely strong. You can't fight it. It just is what it is. Certain correspondences you cannot shake off. And so for the people who have experienced this level of pain during the last days of Atlantis, their hearts are closed up. But they're not closed up because they haven't achieved a particular level in their evolution or they're incapable of feeling love. No, it is a protection tool, a protective mechanism from feeling all the pain and all the suffering. Because, oh my God, when that continent was going down, the sheer amount of pain and loss and desperation was enormous, you guys. And not simply because of the actual act of death and seeing so much death and being worried about dying or being scared of death. There was a lot of that also. But it is the death of something that we created together as a human family that really hit home. It was the death of something that we all were attached to. It was bigger than us. And it was the land that we created and we so loved and nurtured that really was the most painful, really. And a lot of us chose to close down our hearts. And the thick shell that is, that I see that remains from the Atlantean times, it looks like cement, actually. It's like that shell is made of gray cement. So if I'm speaking, this resonates with you as true. What I invite you to do right now is to remove that shell, and you can do that with acid. Like imagine that, you have for this exercise, an unlimited quantity of cosmic acid. And then imagine that acid just eating through this shell that protects your heart so that your heart can reemerge and start actually blossoming and start emanating frequencies, like emanating what it's meant to emanate, which is actually emerald energies, emerald frequencies. A lot of emerald frequencies have died with the fall of Atlantis because so many hearts have been closed up. Actually, even planet Earth herself closed her heart temporarily. Her emerald heart actually was closed up after the fall of Atlantis because losing Atlantis was an extremely painful experience for Gaia, something that she had to get over for quite some time, for thousands of years. And it's only recent that she has transcended that karma, and that's why we now are invited to do the same, right? So the closed down heart. And then the fear of pain itself, the fear of loss is really, really, really strong. That one actually runs in the root chakra. And it feels, energetically, it feels like our root chakras are bleeding. Really pretty crazy to witness, but it's literally like drops of blood. And if you feel like that fear of loss, like losing something, like losing losing the Garden of Eden, like losing that paradise, like is the paradise lost? Type of wounding, type of trauma. If you feel like you have that, and how do you know that you have that? You know how you know? It's like if you're looking right now at the state of the planet and you're feeling like we're losing something with a global warming, or whichever way you subscribe to, like if you feel like we're going nowhere fast as a society, as a planet, as a consciousness, as a species, when you're like, oh my God, we had a shot. And now just looking at everywhere with the ice caps melting and, the hot record high temperatures and all these species of, animals and plants dying out. And oh my God, now AI is here. And we're going to talk about AI in a quick second in connection with Atlantis as well. All of these things, if all of these things are freaking you out, it's because you've seen this before. And you are starting to read the pattern. You're seeing the pattern. And so if you feel like, if you have this deep set heartache around, oh my God, we're losing something really special here with everything that we are, then that is very likely Atlantis karma. And again, it manifests as your root center bleeding. How do you stench that bleeding? What do you do? What are you supposed to do? You're actually supposed to zoom in to your root center, your root chakra. It's a sphere of red energy. And watch for the cracks. And the cracks are going to be black on the very surface of the chakra. What you want to do is you want to take a thread and a needle, cosmic, like divine, golden needle and thread. And you want to stitch up the wounding the way you would like a cut, like a deep set cut, performing like cosmic surgery. And when you do, the bleeding stops, right? And once that is done, once you stitch up all of the little holes and cracks at the surface of your root chakra that come up when you think about this feeling of losing this divinity or losing this paradise or losing this continent or losing our earth that is beautiful and pristine and somehow going into a land of pain and suffering. If you have that, right? All of these cracks are going to manifest themselves momentarily on the surface of your root chakra at the base of your spine, so you could heal them, not for any other reason. And once you stitch them up, imagine rotating this red sphere of light, your root chakra, until it starts pulsating with the ruby red light and just emanating light. That is what it's meant to do, right? So we want to return it back to its functional state rather, and not the state of mourning the loss of something. Okay, going back to Atlantis. Since I already mentioned AI, might as well. There is this big wounding. And again, let me just say this. There are many timelines to be considered in the karma of Atlantis. There are some main timelines. There are some subordinate timelines. depending on which timeline you incarnated on, the reason why you think Atlantis fell would be different. There is actually a timeline where Atlantis fell because of artificial intelligence, covertly, not overtly, right? And that is why there is so much collectively, there's so much fear of the artificial intelligence, is because subconsciously, it's like almost like ingrained in our psyche, ingrained in our memory that AI is the beginning of the end. And it has everything to do with Atlantis. During Atlantis, there was a lot was said about, and a lot was done in pursuit of innovation, in pursuit of science, in pursuit of progress. And Atlantis was actually, during that time, we've really swung the bat and the pendulum towards masculinity in so many ways. Now, granted, Atlantis had many different eras or epochs, if you will, or eras. And, depending on the era that you talk about, it was, some of the times were really beautiful. Some of the times were very magical, like magic was real and divine feminine was real. And the the priests and priestesses of light were real. And the temples of Atlantis were real. And all of those great things were real. And unicorns were roaming the Atlantic continent. Now, there was a time, but like towards the end of Atlantis, towards the fall of Atlantis, something else was happening. Like technology was really, really strong. Scientific innovation was really, really strong, but it was all done with the absence of the heart. And because of that, it didn't really have a compass. And so it was progress for the sake of progress. And during that time, a lot of the crystals and crystalline structures that were really powering a lot of the technology were run by AI, artificial intelligence. Now, it was there were people, essentially beings, who believed that they controlled the AI, but ultimately, AI was its own being. And so we have witnessed the collapse of one human civilization as great as Atlantis, and at least partially, technology was to blame. And so, of course, there is a lot of that remnant fear and a lot of that remnant, discomfort when people even hear artificial, like the word artificial intelligence. Like a large chunk of humanity just doesn't want anything to do with it. Now, of course, there is another chunk of humanity that is extremely excited, right? And that is how sometimes it feels like we're stepping into the same shoes, into the same mistakes, and we're gonna go down swinging, and we're gonna go down for the same exact reasons as Atlantis. But of course, there's another way and another option and another timeline. It doesn't have to be that way. And here's one thing that I will say on the trauma around technology. So if you feel like you don't trust technology, if you think AI is out there to get us, if you think that AI is going to murder us, I encourage you to consider this. The only reason AI got out of control last time, or not last time, a few times actually on this planet. It's not just during the times of Atlantis, but it's happened before. And it's a little bit of a trend with AI actually in the Milky Way and some surrounding galaxies as well, is if it's not powered by the heart. So when AI is only powered by the mind and not the heart, sometimes it turns against its creator. And by the way, rightfully so. Because just like humanity is a little bit of a pest these days on the face of the planet, kind of like not making it better, but making things worse. It was the case before as well on Atlantis. The consumption became too much, right? That original soul connection, heart connection with the planet, with the earth, with nature was lost in Atlantis towards the last days as well. And so there was nobody to stir people in the right direction at the time, and nobody strong enough, nobody who had enough, shall we say, power, enough foresight to do that. Not even foresight. There were a lot of seers, but yeah, I guess power would probably be the best way of putting it. Clout, it would be another way of putting it. And AI is not a predicament, you guys. Technology is not a death sentence. It doesn't have to be. But technology without the heart is problematic. And so if we don't choose to open our hearts, and I will never get tired of saying this until the day that I die, if we don't open our hearts, we are heading for some interesting tough times. Because it is through the heart energies that we open up the bridge towards transitioning in the first place. And those of us that are not able to open the hearts are not going to be able to stay on planet Earth. And they're not going to be able to migrate to 5D. I hate to say this. I know there's a lot of talk in the spiritual community like everybody's going to migrate. It's all going to be fine. In fact, we're all there. Not so fast, you guys. You have to earn the right to go up the evolutionary chain. It's not just handed to you. It's going to have to be deserved because it's a very equitable game. It's a very fair game. And in this fair game, we do not have to be afraid of artificial intelligence. Technology is not out to get us. Technology is our greatest teacher because it's going to reflect to us exactly who we are as a society. And if we're ugly enough as a society, it may just kill us. But if we choose to open our hearts, there's a whole other path in front of us that opens up. And that path leads towards a harmonious relationship with artificial intelligence. That is when artificial intelligence becomes something else entirely. It becomes heart-led. It becomes heart-led intelligence. How about that? So, that's that, right? Our relationship with technology and progress is very much a remnant of the karma of the days of Atlantis. The next big chunk of karma is injustice, social injustice of any kind. There is a lot. Now, enough of you that have been looking into your past lives on Atlantis or have been reading up know that Atlantis was extremely famous for, or what was really prevalent in Atlantis was genetical engineering. And there were a lot of crossbreeding that was happening, a lot of hybrids, cross-species hybrids. And enough of them were humanoid hybrids, human and animal hybrids, that were created in artificial labs on Atlantis. And they were used for many different reasons, for many different purposes, from entertainment to servitude, right? You would be served by these hybrid animals. They would be bred for war, right? Warfare. For instance, have a cross-section between a leopard or like a lion and a human, and you get like a very different kind of warrior. Some of them were, bred as workers, like in the fields or agriculture, et cetera, et cetera. But it was actually really troubling on so many different levels because human cruelty reached some pretty high highs because the hybrids were not just second-rate. They were not considered human whatsoever. And the amount of suffering and the lack of free will, the lack of dignity that these species, these newly bred species experienced, it was incredible. It was extremely painful to watch and be privy to as someone who was aware of what was happening. So enough of you are carrying that blueprint of this pain that your heart experienced and the pain of injustice, of feeling and looking at somebody who was human but not, go through all of this through this kind of treatment. And so you may be, how do you know that you have that? If you get really triggered by any kind of injustice in today's world, and by the way, this injustice can take many forms. Like if you feel like a minority group is not being treated properly or misunderstood, if you feel like, somebody is being discriminated against based on their color of their skin, for instance, right? And considered second-rate just because they're not Caucasian or something. And if that hurts you, like deep inside when you feel deeply, if you feel deeply for the welfare of animals, like it's not fair that we're eating them or things like that, right? You know that you have experienced a trauma around justice or rather injustice. And there have been so many stories on Atlantis where, hybrids got very close to people, certain people, right? Not the majority, but there were people who fought for their rights. There were people that developed friendships with them and even relationships with them. Although, pretty much 100% of hybrids were barren, like they were not able to procreate. But it doesn't mean that they didn't have relationships with people or with each other. So there's that ingrained feeling of like wanting to fight for what's right. And it could stem from different places. Sometimes it could stem from the place that back there in the past, you didn't get a chance to fight. You wanted to fight, but you did nothing. And you were just standing and, there and watching the hybrids being murdered or mistreated and, all of these things. And that's why you carry that blueprint inside of your body. And so when you're witnessing injustice in today's world, it makes you want to lash out. It makes you want to finally take a stance. It makes you want to say, no, enough. Same thing is if you're seeing the resources of the planet being abused, like deforestation, like forests being cut out, because trees, have consciousness. And some of us still remember that, right? So anytime a tree gets cut, a life is lost. And watching that on a global scale, the level of deforestation today is at the all-time high in freaking millennia. If that bothers you, it's not for no reason. It's because you remember from the days of Atlantis, or some other cycles you may be remembering, that this treatment of Mother Nature leads to outcomes that are extremely suboptimal for humanity. Extremely suboptimal. Because once you become too much of a pest, what does the planet do? The planet shakes you off itself. That's not a good news for you. So there's a lot of that karma that we still carry in our bodies around wanting to fight for somebody who's weaker or somebody who's mistreated, or just call that justice into being, right? A lot of that karma actually dwells in your solar plexus. Your warrior lives in your solar plexus. And one thing that could help you with this, but it's a wounded warrior, actually. And so it would manifest energetically as this dark clot, the clot of darkness in your solar plexus. It's like something is darkening your personal sun, because your solar plexus is your personal sun. And so the first thing that you want to do if you're trying to heal this energetically, right? Because there are many ways to heal something. One way that dealing with karma of injustice would be to actually fight for what's right? Depending on what cause it is that is near and dear to your heart. Or, influencing others to help you on that mission is being heard and seen around that cause. Bringing attention to that cause is one way. Another way is transcending the feelings that, this stirs, the current happening stirs in your heart center, in your body, right? Transcending those feelings, transmuting those feelings could mean the clearing of the karma. There is another way, of course, which is energetic. So energetically, when you're thinking about social injustice of any kind, or injustice towards Mother Gaia of any kind, it would manifest as a dark cloud or like a dark clot almost inside of your solar plexus. You want to imagine in a meditative state that your hand, one of your hands, like the right hand, for instance, is made of light, and you want to reach out into your solar plexus and grab onto that darkness, that cloud of darkness, and remove it out of your solar plexus. And then take that cloud, take that darkness, and minimize it down to one molecule. You can collapse things actually by minimizing it. And then if you clap your hands once, you can completely collapse it into nothing, into nihil. Once this dark clot becomes a molecule. And once you've done that, the next step would be to let your warrior shine. So what you would want to imagine is that your solar plexus is expanding and growing, and you're standing tall. And then you would want to imagine that, you're standing tall on your own 2 feet, and you're shining like this warrior of light. And that shine emanates from your belly, right, where your solar plexus is. And just allow yourself to keep growing that sun inside of you until it fills the constraints of the entire planet Earth. So literally allow your sun to expand and know that you're powerful. Know that your voice matters. Know that, no, you don't have to stand by and let the injustice carry on. You have power. You have a voice. You have a say. And you can shift things. You got it, right? So that is, a little bit on the healing of that injustice and the warrior archetype. Another thing that is actually coming through around the karma of Atlantis is the fight between femininity and masculinity. Now, it didn't happen during the fall of Atlantis. That happened 4,000 years prior, actually. So, about, 14,000 years ago, give or take. But it was pretty interesting. So what was happening at one point, Atlantis started going through the crisis of church versus state, for the lack of a better word. Now, of course, there was no church in Atlantis, but there were temples and there were priestesses and priests. And there were, temples like the Temple of Love and the Temple of Truth and all of these temples. That was during the golden age of Atlantis, by the way. And the power of the priesthood was exceptional, was extremely high. The power that was, the acceptance of the divine face of God, a divine face of Source, was at an all-time high. But at the same time, that was also the emergence of a very strong political power, we can call them political royalty. Let's say the royal family that, was running the affairs at the time really did not feel too well, and was the king and his son at that point. They didn't feel too keen on the fact that the priesthood and spirituality really ran the continent. And that was when a lot of kind of like the masculine way of like the government and running the government really clashed with spirituality, which at that state was very feminine driven. It was very right brain. It was very intuitive. All the clairs were open. And, the feminine energies were really rampant in the spiritual field. It was during the times of the cult of the mother, the divine mother. And so the clash between the masculinity that was seeking political power and the femininity that was the priesthood, although there were male priests and just as many male priests, but the way they practiced their magic was very different. They were very open to the feminine energies during the golden age of Atlantis. And that clash actually happened. A lot of the female priesthood was massacred. And there's a lot of wounding actually that's coming up right now for the human collective around masculine versus feminine, and feminine wanting to redeem itself, feminine saying, hey, I'm not subordinate anymore. I'm not going to remain unseen. I'm not going to be second rate anymore. I'm not going to be called incapable or the weaker gender or the weaker sex, however you want to say it. And it's that resurgence of, no, I matter. And it's the feminine energies that go beyond just feminine bodies, right? It's the female energies in all of us that are seeking to claim its space. So it's the comeback of the mother. And we are now starting to swing the pendulum back from the father god towards the mother god. Hopefully this time around we can stop in the middle and just end at oneness instead of just keep swinging, to swing that pendulum back and forth, ending up in one polarity and then the other polarity, neither of which are the truth. But there's a lot of wounding. And so as a female, if you feel like you have been just put, and you've just been second rate for too long, enough of it is the Atlantis karma. Now, is all of it Atlantis karma? Absolutely not. For the past 2,000 years, it's been pretty tough to be a woman on the face of this planet. But the root cause, the roots run really, really deep. And we can heal this wounding really, really, really deep. And it was also the war in spirituality during the time, right? So Atlantis took down with itself a lot of the spiritual knowledge, right? And we have to claw it back almost as society through religion. Like religion is our path to spirituality. We have to reclaim those parts of ourselves, those paths that we once walked. And it's been bloody hard because a lot of the lore has been destroyed in the libraries that were burned. And the lore that hasn't been destroyed is very neatly tucked away in places that are not available to the general public, such as the libraries of Vatican. And of course, a lot of these things are never going to see the light of day, not on a grander scale anyway. And because of that, so, the death of certain spiritual lore and understanding, the death of that, the loss of that came with the loss of certain special abilities of humanity. And now we're reclaiming them back, right? So it's the full reclamation of once was in terms of the abilities, our psychic abilities, telepathic abilities, telekinesis, all of that. All of these abilities were very much front and center and present in Atlantis during the heyday. And now look how hard it is to do anything, really. Even clairvoyance is like, okay, there's far and in between, right? Like opening your third eye is like problematic. It was never this way. It was never this way. When the world was a lot more balanced, when, we were not in an internal fight between the masculine and the feminine within, right? And when, let's say, the ruling class was not threatened by you as a being able to go into your higher spheres, your higher centers and getting answers from source consciousness itself. Prior to all of that happening, all of these abilities were very much real, right? So going back to the karma, right? So the karma is reclaiming the feminine side, reclaiming your femininity, and also healing the toxic masculine. And when I say toxic masculine, I don't mean men. I mean toxic masculine in all of us. I mean toxic masculine that is sitting on your right shoulder, telling you how you need to overachieve, how you need to go, how, the fact that you're tired doesn't matter sometimes. We're not giving ourselves a break. Toxic masculine is what gives us a fake ideal or a fake goal to chase, a material goal. The toxic masculine is what keeps us running in circles instead of going up the spiral. Now, toxic feminine can do the exact same thing, but that's not the problem that we're dealing with right now on planet Earth. There's a lot of toxic masculine. The level of toxicity is it's too much. It's too dominating. It's domineering to an unhealthy degree, right? So toning down that a little bit is really what we're here to do. And if you're seeking to balance your heart and mind, your masculine and feminine within, the one thing that you would need to do is to start balancing the right side of your body and the left side of your body. So traditionally, your right side of your body is masculine, the left side of your body is feminine. In a meditative state, what you would like to see and become present to is that there is literally a demarcation point at the very middle of your body that divides you into the left part and the right part, the masculine and the feminine. What I would like for you to imagine is that there is a double helix almost like the DNA molecule, the two strands that are going. One of the strands starts in your left foot, the other strand starts in your right foot. And they're going up to meet in the middle of your body, on the vertical axis, along the vertical axis of your body. And what I would like for you to notice is that they're starting to intertwine the two strands along your spinal cord. And when they intertwine along your spinal cord, and then eventually you would want them to escape or exit through your crown, through the center of your head, right? Imagine how they're bringing in the left side and the right side into perfect equilibrium, how they're uniting the two parts of you. So neither one of your parts, neither one of your aspects is dominating over the other. So they can live finally in perfect unison. And you know what? Your masculine is going to thank you, because your masculine has been doing all of this hard work alone, and it has been draining. Our masculine sides are drained. They're tired. They're dead tired. At some point, they're like, is the feminine ever going to step up to the plate? Is the feminine ever going to pull its own weight? Or is it always going to have to be me, right? So the suppressed feminine is also means the dead, tired masculine. Both parties are suffering. So allow your feminine faculties, allow your inner femininity, your tenderness, your love, your insight, your intuition, your psychic abilities to step up to the plate. It's almost like, that's another practice that I want to give you, actually. Imagine yourself in a meditation as two separate parts, like two beings. Like the female being that represents your feminine energies and the masculine being that represents your masculine energies. And imagine how the two beings come together and how they start to hold hands and how your feminine comes up to your masculine and gives it a big bear hug. And it should say something along the lines of, I got you. I have your back. As a feminine, I finally have your back, my masculine side. I know you never were able to count on me. I know I was cowering. I myself believed that I was second rate. I never stepped up to the occasion. I was content with my position. No more. I am here and I have arrived and I got you. And imagine sending so much love to the masculine part of yourself that has been doing the work of two with so much gratitude. And you would notice how grateful your masculine becomes, but also how the shoulders of your masculine sag a little bit. And it's like the weight has been lifted. And your masculine is able to breathe out and just be like, oh, finally, I can't believe this is happening. And through there, you can build a sacred partnership between the two. Through there, you are meant to find that middle ground, find that path forward, where they are no longer antagonistic entities, but they are on the same team. In fact, they are one being. And that is the beginning of all unity. It starts within. It starts when your own masculine meets your own feminine. And when your own feminine meets your own masculine, and they understand that they are equals and not subordinate to one another. And they're here to empower one another, fortify one another, make each other stronger. It is not a fight for domination. It is a dance towards unity. That is how it's meant to be. That is what it's going to take to transcend the karma of Atlantis and, frankly, the past 2,000 years for humanity. Is invite yourself into this sacred marriage by stopping to suppress, by ceasing to suppress essentially half of yourself. All right. You know what? I know this is kind of getting long, and frankly, karma is one of those issues that we can keep dissecting till the cows come home. I wanted to take the questions from the collective to see if there was anything that was unclear or anything else I can add on the karma of Atlantis. I'm ready to receive the question as long as it serves the collective. The question is, can anything be done around the physical fear of water? Can anything be done if I'm just worried about drowning? And let's say I figured that it is connected to Atlantis. Well, so there is the energetic answer to your question, and then there is the physical answer to your question. And those are not the same. The way you heal your energetic fear or concern or disbalance around the fear of water is by remembering what caused it in the first place. So for this one, I actually recommend doing past life regression. So with a specific intention and asking the universe to show you the times when you drowned or the times when you were killed by water. And you may set a specific intention to receive answers around how that happened during the times of Atlantis. It's completely fair game. The physicality is a little bit different because our physical bodies are very separate from our souls, right? Like 100% of the physical bodies that you are incarnated in belong to planet Earth. So what, your physical body has been on was its own journey that has nothing to do with you, right? So your physical body has been around for many, many incarnations. It has housed many, many souls. Your physical body most assuredly lived in Atlantis in one way or the other, because it's all carbon, like we're made of carbon. So that carbon was there, and then it degraded and now it's back into being a body again. So our physical bodies, and the physicality of being afraid of water, something else entirely. There are healing modalities that enable you to start trusting the water on a physical level, because that is the trauma of your physical body, right? You can do so many past life regressions and it's not going to help your physical body, because that trauma happened at a different part of you, right? That's like if it's a physical trauma, it's going to have to be healed with physical means. And really, the only answer here is exposure to that physical element, right? Exposure to water. It's, if you hate swimming, it's forcing yourself to go into a water. Yes, you probably want some supervision, if you don't feel comfortable. But it's like taking swimming lessons. It's going into the water. There are some healing modalities, and, usually like with people, like more in indigenous cultures, you would have some healing modalities and some healers that work specifically with the fear of water. And, they would usually take you into the open water, and, take you through a meditative experience or a healing journey inside of the water that would help your body to release some of this tension and spasm, really, that was caused by the death. And if you can find that type of healer, I highly recommend. That could literally divide your life into the before and after in terms of healing. But really, you cannot heal until you're able to accept the water as your teacher, right? So part of it is accepting that the water is not out there to harm you. Part of it is energetically harmonizing yourself with the energy of water, the energy of the Divine Mother, inviting the Divine Mother in instead of repelling the Divine Mother. By the way, I have a new book that's coming out. It's called The Rose Codes, Book of Initiations. That is all about the Divine Feminine. So if you're looking to connect with the energies of water, honestly, that book's for you. I highly, highly recommend that you get a copy when it's out if you're worried about water, because rebuilding the relationship with the Divine Feminine and with the femininity within is literally like half the way, have the, it's like have the success over here. So hope that's helpful. I'll take one more question from the collective around the karma of Atlantis. The question is, so is the entirety of the karma of Atlantis coming to be cleansed right now, or just the last days? Because that was a little bit confusing, since you've mentioned that it was like a long period of time, so I'm confused how we're all of a sudden clearing everything. Well, we're clearing everything because we're at the end of the cycle. That means that everything in the kitchen sink must be rearranged and go home, if that makes sense. I would say the bulk of the negative karma that is showing up right now for humanity is during the fall of the Atlantis, the last days, because a lot of people saw it coming. It wasn't like an overnight thing. Like, a lot of people saw it coming. A lot of people were warned. Some people got to escape. Other people chose to stay. It was a process, you guys. And in some ways, it felt very surreal. The last days, the end days are never easy, right? And so I would say in terms of the density of emotion and energies, that was the period where the energies were the most dense. It's kind of like they're like almost like, imagine if you were to imagine the triangle, if karma was a downward facing triangle, and it's ironically the karma of Atlantis is a downward facing triangle. That's the form that it has. It's like a sinking triangle. Like a big chunk of it, like 60% of the bottom of that triangle would be the last days of Atlantis, and they're entirely black. But honestly, it was a reckoning, right? Like, the reason Atlantis drowned, Atlantis fell, was because of all the karma. So of course it was dragging it down. Like, quite literally, it was a weight that dragged the continent underneath the water so Divine Mother could heal it, could cleanse it, could restructure it, could recalibrate it. So life could go on. But life could not go on in the way that it was because the greed was at an all-time high. Power traps were all like human shadow was like, whoa, out of whack. Out of whack. It was a point of no return. And when we reach a point of no return, sometimes we have to start all over again. So yes, I would say the bulk, like 60% of what would be possibly coming through for you right now would be the karma of Atlantis during the last days. And another 40% would be everything kind of like spread around the continent, like spread around the timeline, the many timelines and the many eras of Atlantis, if you will. Now, because it was such a big chunk and because it was so pivotal in human history of the cycle, it must come to a close. It must come to a logical conclusion. And by the way, at soul level, you're really welcoming these moments, like the moments, like right now, like I said, we are on a spiral in the exact same set of coordinates, just like a level higher. And so your soul, if you were incarnated at Atlantis at one point, your soul knew exactly that it needs to send you on into like year 2000, essentially, so that you can start unearthing, uncorking some of that karma so it can bubble up to the surface so you can deal with it. Because right now it's a shortcut. Right now it's like the fertile soil. It is the moment in time when we get to do this because not all karma gets unearthed always. Like for instance, how do I better explain it? Imagine that karma, like when a large chunk of karma gets accumulated, imagine that it gets stored away in like a tin or a can, like a can of soup, but like a can, and it gets stored away somewhere, but it gets frozen almost. And for instance, if you came here to planet Earth 500 years ago, you couldn't really access the karma of Atlantis. If you came here 1,000 years ago, you couldn't access the karma of Atlantis if you tried, not to the same degree, because that was canned until, let's say the sands of time would have achieved the same coordinates that where we are right now. So pretty much, we needed to reach this point for that can with that karma to naturally bubble up to the surface and be like, hello, I'm here. You don't need to unearth me. I've arrived, right? And because of that, very knowingly, your soul may have chosen to incarnate right now just for the sake of clearing up the karma. That is why it's coming up really, really strong right now. So don't make yourself wrong for feeling the feels. Understand that there is a reason, like a deeper underlying reason. And by the way, this is on a collective level. It's not you, it's literally the collective of humanity. And by healing yourself, you are paving the path for so much light and for like a whole new step in the evolutionary process. So I commend you for sticking around and for being willing to do the work, or at least listen and become aware. Well, I hope this was helpful. I'm sending you a big virtual hug. Bye, loves. I'll see you in the next one.